This is Investment Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Daily live streaming interactive featuring Mrs. Backup. Subscribe, hit the notification, smash the likes. Now, here's Backup Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to Investment Perspectives, everybody. I'm Brad Kimes. You can follow me on Twitter at Backup Bradley above at the top of the screen, and everything that we're talking about here. I want to take you through a few pieces of information, article here that came out a couple days ago, and I want to play the clip that Chris Larson had that I believe we've all seen, but I want to discuss some comments that we really haven't touched on, and then an idea and notion about a couple of things. One, the miners primarily from Ethereum and Bitcoin being in China, as he commented on. And the other thing is taxes. And we're going to take a look at a document about that as well. So let's see if we can't get this tied together properly here. Okay, so we're going to start with this Bloomberg Law article. The U.S. needs to slow China's roll towards global digital payment domination. Jameson Greer, partner at KS Law and former USTR Chief of Staff, says, and let's get into this because this is a great article, so I'm going to run this down really quickly. China is aggressively seeking to dominate digital currencies in the next generation of international financial payments. Jameson Greer, partner at King Spalding LLP, who recently served as Chief of Staff of the White House of the Office of Trade Representative, warns that the failing to address this emerging threat will undermine U.S. national security and explores what U.S. regulators need to be doing to the level playing field so China doesn't end up controlling the international payment system. Now, this is quite interesting because we know Brad Garlinghouse has shared this. I believe even Chris Larson may have shared this as well. After years of neglect, the U.S. government has woken up to strategic challenge posed by China. It is no secret that China seeks to dominate global markets and manufacture products, advanced technology, and artificial intelligence. Global concern about Chinese hegemony over 5G networks is at an all-time high. Human rights and national security flashpoints are severely testing China's relations with the West. Less known and perhaps more worrying, however, is China's ambition and growing ability to control the next generation in international financial payments through blockchain technology and digital or cryptocurrency. If successful, China will become the gatekeeper for key payment technologies and systems that the U.S. government, companies, and consumers will increasingly rely upon in the future. Over the past 3 years, the Trump administration has made significant economic headway with China, extracting meaningful trade concessions while maintaining leverage with tariffs. But it is not enough for the U.S. to focus only on its trade in goods and services with China. Failure to address this emerging threat will undermine U.S. leadership in the global economy and present a national security risk. Listen to that. Leveling the playing field. The first step in this effort is to put the U.S. companies on a level playing field with Chinese competitors. For decades, international financial transfers have depended on the U.S. dollars as the world's trade currency. But blockchain and digital currency advances will likely displace legacy payment systems. The introduction of new technology to make cross-border payments faster, cheaper, and more transparent is welcome, but if the U.S. does not act swiftly, it risks giving China the global advantage. This is precisely why China is promoting its own digital financial architecture. China has already created a new domestic system for digital payments operated through its own tech companies such as Alipay and WeChat. They capture more than 90% of the individuals in China's largest cities on their mobile apps platform. There's no question that in this space, China has already a world-class industry. China is also working on creating a centralized sovereign digital currency. The People's Bank of China began testing its currency in 4 cities in April, and we can expect to see this spread throughout China and even abroad. It doesn't take much imagination to see China requiring international payments to be made using its digital currency. Weaker nations dominated by China's infrastructure projects and financing would be particularly vulnerable to such an effort. While it may seem improbable now, similar demands for the U.S. retailers and consumers relying on Chinese imports would not be far behind. While developing its own digital currency, China has simultaneously created favorable conditions for producing hoarding cryptocurrency. The Chinese government is following the same basic playbook it used to take over any sector. It's subsidizing the vast amounts of energy needed to fuel the servers and equipment at cryptocurrency mining facilities throughout the country. The government also has provided tax deductions to mining farms. The leading hardware company for cryptocurrency mining equipment, Bitmain, is in China and has facilitated the creation of colossal industry within a few short years. As a result, 65% of cryptocurrency value for assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum, or Ether, is concentrated in China. As their use expands, China will be in a unique position to exert influence or control over these currencies. Unfortunately, the only two digital currencies that enjoy regulatory certainty in the United States market are Bitcoin and Ether. Otherwise, the U.S. regulatory environment for digital currencies is opaque, unevenly applied, and puts some homegrown projects at severe disadvantage. Our policymakers should take the opportunity to provide clarity to ensure the U.S. blockchain platform that rely on digital currencies created in the U.S. can compete everywhere. Deliberate, concrete action is needed. This is not a question of providing special treatment for U.S. players. It's about setting the global industry on a level playing field. Without deliberate or concrete actions by the U.S., to which other countries look for leadership, China will own important components of their infrastructure of the new global payment economy. A proactive approach is especially critical in the world where Chinese entities may become increasingly subject to U.S. sanctions, which are effective only to the extent that they can reach financial transactions. The same is true for the long arm of the U.S. anti-money laundering laws and corruption enforcement. China and other actors that may find themselves on the wrong end of the U.S. enforcement efforts would be happy to control an alternative financial system to skirt those sanctions and anti-money laundering laws. The time is right to get our house in order. U.S. companies are developing innovative digital platforms with the fastest transaction times on the planet. Wonder who they could be talking about. These U.S. entrepreneurs have successfully adapted digital currency for commercial use by hundreds of financial institutions globally, something that has never happened before. These kinds of free enterprise solutions can preserve American primacy in the international payments and ensure compliance with global standards that promote good governance and the rule of law. The private sector is doing its part. It is incumbent on the U.S. policymakers to do theirs. It is imperative to establish a predictable and fair regulatory structure that established, at a minimum, a level playing field for U.S. blockchain innovators that rely on digital assets, allowing the U.S. industry to continue muddling through a regulatory morass in a recipe for economic and national security disaster. This is an incredible article by Jameson Greer, I have to say. And it sets the tone for where we're going here. Now what I'm going to do is open up to a clip, as you may remember, of Chris Larson here talking to the Wall Street Journal, I believe it was, Paul Vigna. Now let's listen to this.
China now has moved very strongly into building out a central bank digital currency, a renminbi, as well as controlling mining and basically having almost all their payments digital domestically. You know, frankly, and we can talk about it as well, we're way behind China when it comes to blockchain technology. So, you know, the companies need to just stay at it, you know, blocking and tackling, working within the system, but that vision of free money moving around essentially for free. That's what the internet basically is for information. But the U.S. government also needs to get a lot more involved in blockchain. We're slow to the game. China is so far ahead of us. You know, they just announced they're going to spend $1.4 trillion on technology. Payments and blockchain, clearly part of that strategy. You could even argue the move to control Hong Kong more closely gives them an advantage in controlling two of the global financial centers. U.S. only has one, right? So the U.S. has got to change its view that goes from 17 and 18, which was all about these horrible ICOs, initial coin offerings, which were terrible, had to be shut down. They effectively shut them down. We won that war. Now we got to switch to, okay, how do we compete with China? How do we keep up? And, you know, till now, frankly, U.S. regulators have actually helped China by officially giving clarity to the two protocols effectively controlled by Chinese miners.
Listen, he's talking about two protocols given to Chinese miners, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Listen to the rest of this very closely.
Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's a mistake. We've got to also give clarity at least, and maybe even support, if this really becomes a tech cold war like it's looking like it will be.
If it really becomes a tech cold war like it's looking like it will be. A tech cold war. A tech cold war.
To technologies that are more favorable to U.S. and its allies' stewardship of the next-gen global financial system.
Listen to that last line there. That is a remarkable line.
It's a tech cold war like it's looking like it will be. To technologies that are more favorable to U.S. and its allies' stewardship of the next-gen global financial system.
Unbelievable, that last line there. I don't even know if I could spit that out the way he did. I mean, it's just so good.
Will be. To
technologies that are more favorable to
technologies that are more favorable to U.S.
and its allies' stewardship.
Its allies' stewardship of the next-gen global financial system.
Of the next-gen global financial system. Let me tell you something. Let me show you something. This is less about the token, and this is more about the system. This is less about the token, and then this is more about the ledger. Now let's take a look at this. France, India, and the UK and others applying digital service taxes to businesses, and they've been unable to impose corporate income tax on these firms effectively, a multilateral solution to shape the future of trade and global economic independence, interdependence. Now, I find this interesting because it takes us directly to the link here, which is a World Economic Forum document about corporate tax digitalization and globalization. Now, we covered this from the OECD, I believe it is the acronym there, several months ago about the two-pillar tax system that was proposed for a global digitalization tax. Now, I'm not going to, trust me, breathe a sigh of relief. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but I am going to take you here to just a couple highlights of this document. Corporate tax challenges in a globalized, digitalized economy. That's what this is about. In large part, yes, on the front end, we need to be competitive, and they need to get a designation on XRP. That's what Chris Larson's telling you. But more importantly, we need an adoption of a ledger that is a universal ledger that everyone can use. So China can have their private system if they want it. China can have their miners of Ether and Bitcoin in China if they want it. But if we adopt a ledger, like a universal ledger like the XRP ledger, then no matter what they do, whether we're going in with a payment or coming out with a payment, it comes across that ledger, and we understand with the data collection of what's happening, where it's coming from, and if there's any manipulation taking place. This is as much about clarity on the asset as it is, to me, in my opinion, as it is about the adoption of a universal ledger. This is also just as much about solving the tax structure issue on a global level for the new digitized economy. And I'm going to show you they think so at the World Economic Forum too. Because look at this, proposals for reform. Trust me, I'm not going to read the whole thing. The first concern is that the current rules that require physical presence to create a nexus between the taxing jurisdiction and the firm operating there need to be updated for a digitalized economy. Revised nexus and profit allocation rules, Pillar 1, seek to address the issue. The proposal will have the effect of redistributing taxing rights among countries towards making jurisdictions by creating a new taxing right. However, the extent of this shift will depend on the form of the final proposal. Number 1, before countries cannot tax foreign companies in the absence of physical presence in the territory, even though digitalization allows them to operate there. Number 2, after companies with a sustained and significant involvement with the economy will be subject to corporate tax and a portion of their profits allocated there. you can see through all of this, and listen to this last two sections here. The parent company located in high tax country has subsidiaries carrying out operations and holding intellectual property in low tax countries to optimize the group's global corporate tax bill. After tax authorities in high tax country can determine that income generated by subsidiaries is being taxed below the minimum rate and then tax the difference. They're hard at work here, ladies and gentlemen. It may not look like it to us because they don't sit us down at the table to tell us everything that's going on because we're in the retail speculative market. Well, that's just the way the world goes. That's just the way the cookie crumbles, right? So I think the big notion here is for us to keep our eye on the ball. When I hear Chris Larson talking about these things that he is talking about here, about working within the system and tackling the issues that happen. This isn't just about the miners manipulating Ether and Bitcoin in China because they can set up there with tax breaks and the like. This is a much bigger issue about really bringing the entire system together as a federated system, just like the internet we currently use right now, by adopting a universal ledger to bring all these different networks and protocols together. That's how you solve this issue, whether it's taxes or manipulation. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Hit the like and subscribe. Leave a comment below and share with somebody you know. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.